Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosbel, and joining me today is Joana Breckner. Joana is a breast cancer survivor, a 3-time oral cancer survivor, an accidental motivational speaker, cancer awareness advocate, professional organizer, wife, and mother to 2 girls who were only 6 months and 2.5 years at her initial diagnosis. Beginning with her diagnoses and multiple surgeries to treatment and remission, her personal journey highlights the highs and lows as an oral cancer patient. She shares the unexpected and unusual personal power she discovered along the way to persevere and remain resilient and hopeful. Her story has appeared in Costco Connection magazine, the Ventura County Star, Trodent magazine, the Acorn, the American Dental Association's Mouth Healthy, and interviews on various news outlets and podcasts. She has also spoken at various organizations throughout the United States and abroad. So welcome to the show, Joana.
Hi. Wow. I did
With
all that.
those
I'm
speaking,
exhausted.
with all those speaking credentials, this should be easy peasy for you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having me, and congratulations on your own survivorship. I mean, we all have a story, and this connection is so important that we can motivate each other and keep each other going and educate each other.
I always say, and I've said this multiple times in the past, that cancer is the worst club with the best members.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that we're all united just with that 6-letter word. It doesn't matter if it's breast cancer or oral cancer or lung cancer or whatever. Like, I think we all have similar stories and similar reactions and similar, things just all being in this cancer club.
Totally. Yep, I agree.
Yes. All right, so Joana, let's dig into your story. So there's a lot to dissect here. So breast cancer and oral cancer, was your breast cancer like in the middle of your multiple diagnoses, or kind of tell us, the first diagnosis and kind of where you went from there?
Sure. Well, my first 3 diagnoses were all the oral cancer. Okay. And the cancer diagnosis began in 2007. It ended in 2013. So I have been 11 years without any sign of disease. But then I was also diagnosed with breast cancer. It has now been 3 years. Caught it super early, and so far so good. Everything's coming up clean. So right now I'm healthy. I feel great, and I'm in a really, really good place.
Okay, awesome. So talk to us a little bit about oral cancer. How were you diagnosed? This isn't a cancer that you hear about a whole lot. So I really want to kind of let people know, how you were diagnosed and how it's found.
You're right. Oral cancer is not exactly a popular cancer.
So none of them are popular, but
none
of them are more
popular.
Common.
It's not the exactly. Let me rephrase that. It is not one that we hear about as much, and people are always curious. Like, how did you know? Let me begin by saying that I am not a smoker. I've never smoked. No family history. No HPV, which is very common with head and neck cancer patients. My cancer journey began in the dentist chair. I was there for a routine checkup, nothing out of the ordinary. This was in 2001, and my dentist found small white spots on my tongue. Even when he showed them to me, Melissa, I couldn't even see them. My taste wasn't different. I wasn't in pain. It's in effect the way I ate, the way I spoke. And my dentist said, you need to go to an oral surgeon, have it checked out. I did. They biopsied it. It was nothing. But at that moment, I was young. I had my whole life ahead of me. And my dentist, at that moment, I brought an ENT, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, onto my medical team. And he said, come every 6 months and let me just keep an eye on you. So that's what I did. There were no scans, there were nothing. I was completely healthy, going about my life. And then 6 years later, in 2007, something didn't feel right to me. I'm a very hands-on person. I pay attention to my body and when something is working or not working or feels different. And he said, you definitely have a tumor. It's a squamous cell tumor, and it needs to come out. So I went to the hospital. I spent one night, no follow-up treatment, not a big deal. It was like one and done.
So the tumor was on your tongue where those white spots had been?
Yep. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. Yeah, it was the place that the white spots were.
Okay.
So I had that surgery. We removed it. And so I saw my EMT again every 6 months, but now I had a PET scan every year. With oral cancer, the magic number is 5 years. And 4.5 years, I was at the movies. I was eating a piece of popcorn, and it got lodged in something in my mouth. It was very painful. I went right to the EMT. He said, your cancer has returned in the same area, and it has come back very, very aggressively. Now, I was on top of it. So the fact that it kind of reared its ugly head very quickly was not something I was looking, it's not something I really even noticed until I was eating popcorn. Anyways, to make a long story short, that really began the next phase of my cancer journey. I had half of my tongue removed. It was rebuilt with my forearm right here. They took muscles and tissues and arteries, and they rebuilt half of my tongue with this part of my body. It was an 11-hour surgery. I was at UCLA. And then that was followed up with 3 months of chemotherapy and radiation. And so
head and neck radiation and chemo is, I'm sure, not any fun at all.
It is not for the faint-hearted, let me tell you. And not that any cancer is a good cancer, but what I've heard repeatedly is head and neck cancer treatment is, you wouldn't wish it upon your worst enemy, Melissa. And it is as bad as it sounds. But I got through that, and we can go into more detail about treatment if you'd like to. I'll let you lead that conversation. But as far as my cancer journey, I was getting through the treatment. I was in recovery from it. And then a year later from my initial diagnosis, my oral cancer returned, but it had now crossed my midline. It had always been on my right side. Now it was on my left side, and it was growing on my jugular vein.
Wow.
So
it moved out of your mouth down into your neck.
Yeah. So it was considered the same cancer, a recurrence. Again, I had another surgery, another 3 months of chemotherapy and radiation, and now I am many years past. So.
Wow. So you only had half of your tongue removed and replaced. They did not move any more with the third cancer. They just did surgery to remove the tumor off of your vein?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. And I mean, for those people who can't tell, you do have a little bit of a speech impediment. I'm assuming that trying to have that tongue work together with your forearm muscle as well as your tongue muscle, probably took a little while to get used to.
Yeah, and I had speech therapy, I've had swallow therapy, and maybe I'll get in close. If I'm too close and I'm scaring you, tell me, Melissa. But I actually, I'll get in close, but I have the scar. They had to cut me open to remove the tumor, and they also removed 1/4 of my teeth all on the right side, lower side. But they had to cut me open all the way down and around. So literally I was like this. So.
Wow. Okay. For those people who are on audio, there's just, it's a little bit of deformity there on the chin and right side of your face.
Yes.
Okay. but obviously the speech therapy helped. And I
Yes.
mean, you sound amazing and you
Thank
give
you.
speeches all over the world, and it hasn't stopped you at all.
No, I've had to work very hard, and I have taken advantage of the resources that I can. And I've also learned some tricks of how I manage it on a day-to-day basis. So it's part of just accepting my new normal. And acceptance is a very big part of it for me. I feel like I can fight it or I can be okay. Well, I don't have to be okay with it, but I accept it and then I manage it accordingly.
Well, and it's kind of one of those things that, what's the alternative? You
Yeah.
accept it, or, or what? Like, this is kind of the way it is, and you're alive and you're thriving, and
Yes.
in the end, that's all that really matters.
Right. I mean, I have a very full life, a very rich life, wonderful experiences. This doesn't mean I don't have a pity party every once in a while. I do. There are moments, life happens, and I sit in bed and I eat a pint of ice cream and I binge on TV. That is just jello to my brain. And then 24 hours later, I snap out of it and I move on. And I think that's important as well. Have some grace for yourself and give yourself permission to say, I'm having a crappy day and I need to just be, and I need to feel sorry for myself and cry, why me, and then move on.
And that is so important for people to know. I think people sometimes feel like they have to be strong all the time. And
Yeah,
if they, I think when I first started going to grief therapy a few years ago, I said to my therapist, I said, I just, when the tears come, I will block them out. And like, I don't have time for this.
yeah,
And she's like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And I said, I'm afraid I'm going to end up in the fetal position, just sobbing my eyes out and won't be able to stop. And she's like, okay, have you ever cried so much that you weren't ever able to stop? Like,
oh,
it's okay to
yeah,
have these experiences. That's part of grief. It's really about just not living there, like, hey, I can have my pity party. I can feel sorry for myself. I
yeah,
can, Netflix and binge, and then tomorrow's another day, and and move forward with my life. And I think that people forget that part of self-care and part of living life and living the experience is having those bad moments
yeah,
and accepting them and not
hmm,
trying to like be strong all the time.
right,
And then you end up like with all that stress, and then you end up with more health issues because you're not allowing yourself to be free and feel what you need to feel.
yeah. And I don't think there's an expiration date on how long you're allowed to have these moments of sadness or reflection, or maybe it comes back to you because maybe somebody you know got cancer, so it makes you think about your own cancer that maybe you had 5 years ago, 10 years ago. A point maybe where it's not healthy is when you truly get stuck in that space and you can't get out. I'm certainly not a doctor, but I think each of us has our own benchmark of what is healthy and not healthy. So, yeah, that's all.
I know. I think I'm going to do a solo episode about the emotional impacts. And, I've talked to several people who, they talk about like going through active treatment, and they have all their friends and family who are rallying around them when they're in the midst of chemo or
Yeah,
whatever. And then, and doctor's appointments all the time. And then as soon as active treatment is done, everybody's like, okay, you're good, you're cancer free, everything's fine. And then everybody goes away, and
yeah,
and people just descend into this depression because like, I don't know what to do with my life now. It's completely different,
yeah,
and I don't have anybody who's still checking in on me. I don't have doctor's appointments, and like, I don't know what to do with my life now. So there's so much. Yes, there's the physical piece, but there's so much emotional stuff too that goes
yes.
along with any health journey that people who haven't been there, I don't think really understand.
Can I share a funny story?
Of course.
Um, I had just completed my very big surgery, the one that removed half my tongue. I was home, I was recovering, and I remember in one of my first ventures out, I went to pick up the dry cleaning. Go figure. And I picked up the dry cleaning, I got back into my car, and I stopped, and I thought to myself, what am I doing? It was as though I was trying to rush the normal back into my life after going through something that turned my life upside down. And I remember I just sat there and I started screaming and bawling. I'm like, this isn't right. I shouldn't be picking up the dry cleaning. And I was trying to push myself to normal. I mean, so soon after, I don't know. I mean, there are circumstances where you don't have a choice. You have to get right back out there. Fortunately, I did not, but I'm like, dry cleaning, cancer, removing half my tongue, something's not meshing. But that was a big life lesson for me at that moment. I really paid attention to it. I cannot force this if I don't have to.
That is beautiful. Yeah. I think we just want things to get back to normal,
Yeah.
and sometimes we need a little bit more time. And I'm so glad that you were able to cry and experience that and be able to, see that piece of it.
I mean, my language in my car was a lot more colorful, but this is a family show.
It's a family show. PG-13. But we get the point. Absolutely. All right. So the bottom line with oral cancer is make sure you're going to the dentist. We are very grateful for professionals who have a much better understanding and can see
Yes.
things that we might not be able to see. And that's amazing that and I mean, you were following it. I'm sure you were going to the dentist and the ENT like all the time, and it took
All the
6
time.
years for that to actually show up as cancer.
Yeah. I mean, yes, if I can walk away sharing one message, it is when you go to the dentist, make sure they are doing an oral cancer screening. And it is non-invasive. There's no injections or anything that's probing or hurtful. They just
Or
poke around
squishing.
with their fingers and, they touch your neck. They might move things around and manipulate in your mouth. Keep in mind, some doctors might charge you for the oral cancer screening, so you might want to check that up front. And also, a qualified hygienist can do it as well. And if you walk in and they say to you, oh, you don't need it, you're young, you don't smoke, you don't this, you don't that, insist upon it, because you are your best advocate for your health. Mm-hmm. And if it's not something that requires an extra visit or an extra appointment or something that is more involving, you have the right to sit there and ask for it. So demand it. And if I had a dentist who said, sorry, I can't do it, I don't have time, whatever, I would seriously consider looking for a new dentist. And also keep in mind, a dentist not only can see oral cancer, they can pick up on symptoms for other illnesses like heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, eating disorders, drug abuse, diabetes. So they really can be at the forefront of finding other things that might be looming in the background in your health.
So it's not just about getting your teeth cleaned.
It is just not about getting your teeth cleaned. If it was that easy.
Well, and honestly, take advantage of it, because there are still so many cancers that there are no screening processes for. Yeah. That symptomatology is the first sign, and by then, I won't say it's too late, but by then it's it's advanced enough that there are symptoms. Yeah. So take advantage for these cancers that you can actually have a minimally invasive screening, right. And just that's all good for this year.
Right. I mean, you're already in the chair. I mean, even with breast cancer, you make an appointment to get your mammogram, and that's an extra step. Or a colonoscopy. You're in the chair. There's nothing extra to have to do. And unfortunately, there are no guidelines that it is required at every checkup. I wish it was. I'm sure there are politics behind there for this reason, but that's not
I'm
my
sure
job.
insurance has something to do about it too.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. I get my teeth cleaned every 3 months, but
Yeah,
my dentist does a screening every 6 months. So I get
yeah.
checked twice a year. Yeah.
So I think
And
that,
most
I mean,
dentists probably should or do, or hopefully they do. I
yeah,
don't know if in your travels and you're speaking to people, if you have found that there are dentists out there that don't do it.
yes, I have, and people are blown away. Like, your dentist found this? I go, yeah. I go, it's not complicated. But I also believe, be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to look in the mirror. Don't be afraid to lift your tongue, look around. Is there anything suspect? Does something feel different? We can all pay attention. The same way with our own bodies with breast cancer. They encourage us, if you're in the shower, to touch and feel. And don't be afraid to be comfortable with your body. And your mouth is a big part of it.
Wow. That's I love that. Don't be afraid to be comfortable with your own body. It's your body.
Your body!
Right. Don't be afraid to touch it. It's okay.
Exactly.
All right. So now then you had ended up with a breast cancer diagnosis as well. How
Yes.
many years later was that?
I am 3 years out.
Okay. So 21.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I get all my
And a
regular
different
checkups.
cancer, not the
No,
same. Okay.
completely different cancer.
Okay.
What happened was that my mother is a breast cancer survivor. She's had it twice. And my older sister is also a breast cancer survivor. They had it before my diagnosis. And because of my history, my OBGYN said, I really believe you should get genetic testing. So I immediately went off and got genetic testing within a month of the recommendation. And when my results came back, it was recommended that I have not only my mammogram once a year, but I should also have an MRI with contrast. So every 6 months, my breasts are being looked at in a different way. Now, the mammogram I've been having since I was 40 years old, I think. I can't even remember. I've been doing it so long. But the MRI with contrast, that was a new piece of the puzzle. So within months of that result, I made my appointment for the MRI with contrast. And it was at that appointment, they said, oh, there's something here that doesn't look right. So they immediately biopsied it. And sure enough, it was stage 0 breast cancer. I mean, it was caught that early.
So it probably wasn't even on the mammogram 6 months earlier.
It wasn't even on the mammogram. And if I had waited for my regular mammogram the following fall, and maybe it would have been the stage 1 or stage 2. I don't know. So I think to myself, wow, like, one, thank goodness I have a OBGYN that is proactive. 2, I paid attention to what she said and I followed up. I mean, we can get all the best information in the world, but as a patient, if we don't take that information and figure out how to follow up on it, then it might as well sit in a vacuum. But I chose to act on it, and I got a breast cancer diagnosis. I had a surgery. I had oh my God, I have serious chemo brain after 2 years of chemo in a row.
I'm sure.
I didn't have a mastectomy. I had a
Lumpectomy.
Huh?
Lumpectomy.
I have a lumpectomy. Yes.
Okay.
I have a lumpectomy, and when I got the results from the lumpectomy, they found a trace of some cells. She wasn't happy with it, so I went in. I did another lumpectomy, and then my margins were clear. And that was followed up by, I think, a month and a half of radiation.
Okay.
Now, so something I want to share is that my oral cancer was so intense that by the time I got my breast cancer diagnosis, I like to joke with myself that it was cancer light, and not that a
You're like,
cancer
I got this. This is going to be easy. Right?
right. But I was like, oh my God, for what I've been through, this is like a walk in the park. But I do think having perspective, whatever your situation that you're going through, is really, really critical. I know a breast cancer diagnosis at any stage can be completely devastating to a person, depending on the constitution of that person. So for me, a breast cancer diagnosis wasn't as big a deal for me because I had already been through so much before. I knew I still had to take care of business, but my reaction to it wasn't as strong as maybe somebody else might have to it. So I just like to keep in mind that perspective is really important for whatever you're going through. If my breast cancer, if I had had a strong reaction, I would have had a strong reaction, but my life experiences put me in a different direction.
Awesome. All right. So shifting gears a little bit, you said
Yeah.
in your bio that you are an accidental motivational speaker,
Yeah.
cancer awareness advocate. So talk a little bit about how all that came about.
What happened was that I think about 2 years after my oral cancer, I was complete with it, and I was in recovery mode. I was feeling stronger, and I was asked to give a speech at a fundraiser for one of the community groups that I am involved in. So I wrote my speech, and the response was remarkable. And my speech was not just about my cancer; it was about celebrating life. And the response was so strong, and I felt so empowered by it that speech led to another speech, which led to another speech, and the rest is history. If someone had said that with a speech impediment that I would be giving speeches, I would have said, you're out of your mind. Like, nobody wants to listen to this. And it just kind of took off from there. And then I thought, well, maybe I do have something special to share. And I really have to fine tune what did I want my message to be. And kind of grew from there. It just mushroomed.
So what did your message turn out to be?
My message
Or are
was
there more than one?
the crux of the message was about discovering your power and about oral cancer awareness. And I really truly believe that, well, my experience was I couldn't control my cancer. I had my diagnosis. I accepted my diagnosis from day one. I thought to myself, well, this is what I'm going through. This is who I am. I can fight it or I can accept it and then move forward. And I did choose to accept it. I'm a very visual person. The idea of fighting is just not a visual that works for me. So I like to think, okay, this is here. This is what's going on. How do I work with it? So I figured out what was in my control and what wasn't in my control. I couldn't control my illness, but I could control my medical team. I could control the way I prepared for my surgeries and for my treatments. I could control joining a support group, which I did immediately, and I highly recommend to anyone who needs that extra support. I joined the national organization, the Cancer Support Community. Maybe you're not a group kind of person, but they had restorative yoga and art and lectures, and I think you can kind of pick and choose what works for you. So that was a big part for me. I went to a hypnotherapist. Actually, the Cancer Support Community had somebody who did all of these visual exercises, and they offered a free session for anybody who was new. So I went, and she made me these amazing tapes that I visualized my surgery before I went. I would listen to them 2-3 times a day. And so my mind and my body were at their peak of performance when I even went through those hospital doors. So on the day of my surgery, I was not entering a hospital. I was entering a place of healing. And that's how I felt about it. I think the mind is remarkable. And this was free. I mean, I didn't have to pay for it. So maybe if you live in your own cancer support community, they'll have amazing resources for you, depending on what you can and cannot do. So I listened to these tapes like my head was in the game. I also knew that I read the report of what my surgery was going to entail. I read it from top to bottom multiple times, so I knew what was going to happen and what I was going to face at the end of my surgery. So in advance, there was a nutritionist with the cancer support community. I made a free appointment with her, and I was anticipating having challenges eating and drinking in treatment and at the end of my surgery. So we came up with a game plan, and the best advice she gave me, she said, for your type of cancer, make every calorie count. So by the time my surgery was over, I was healing and I went into treatment, I knew exactly how many calories I had to consume a day in order to get through my treatment. I had a game plan, but that's my nature.
Well, and that's, I mean, different people react and respond in different ways.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you knew what you could and couldn't control. And I think so many people, like that's where they suffer because they want to
Yeah.
control things that they can't control and they don't focus on the things that they can. And the way you were able to, okay, this is what I can control. So I'm going to make sure I know everything about this and do what I need to do. And the stuff that I can't control, I'm just going to leave that up to God or my medical
Right.
team or whatever. And it helps to really reduce the stress because, stress and anxiety is the last thing that you need going into a surgery, going into treatment. So that is huge, huge, huge advice for people is, know what you can control, know what you can't control, and focus on what you can control and make that malleable to your life and your situation.
And it served me well. And I still live by that same credo. I mean, there's a lot of collateral damage of oral cancer. And so I figure out, okay, what can I control and what can't I control? And those are the ways I'm managing it. And I'll be managing it for the rest of my life, especially, as I age.
Wow.
For example,
I love this.
My veins are shot. My veins are shot. So every time I go in for a blood draw, in the very beginning, the anxiety and the stress to hit a blood draw, because nobody wants to be poked multiple times. I mean, it kind of spirals out of control. After the first poke and then they have to do it again, you're like, I'm out of here, at least for me. And so I went back to my hypnotherapist and I said, okay, I am petrified of a blood draw. I am petrified to go back to the dentist and get my teeth cleaned. How am I going to manage this? And again, we discussed a certain script. She created these recordings for me. And every time I go into the dentist, every time I get my blood taken, I have a certain visual now so that I go in there calm and relaxed. And I've had nothing but success. And if you're not able to go to a hypnotherapist, there are amazing relaxation and meditation things you can listen to online that I have no problem. Before I get a blood draw, I put my earbuds in, or before I get a cleaning, I put my earbuds in, and I get myself into a zone. And I feel like we're a team. If I do my job to prepare myself for that moment, then they can do their job to do what they need to do. And I think it works together. You know, I'm not just counting on one person, I'm counting on both of us. You do you, and I'll do me, and hopefully we'll do okay.
Oh, I love that. That is fantastic. Yeah, I do breathing. I have my box breathing or my parasympathetic breathing when I
I
go
love
in.
it.
I had an ultrasound, a whole breast ultrasound last week was my 6 month thing. And before they came in, I just did my parasympathetic breathing for a few minutes, was able to just, bring my stress level down, and
Yeah.
it was a fine experience. So, find what works for you
Yeah.
and definitely take advantage of these resources to, to help manage your stress.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So where can people find you if they, if they want to connect with you, if they want more information, like how can people get a hold of you? Are you on the socials? Like what's all the things?
Okay, I'm pretty old school. You can email me.
Okay. And we'll
That would
put
be
all the
it.
stuff in the show notes. But yeah.
Right. You know, I used to do a lot more, and then, you know, over the 10, 11 years, I find myself kind of graduating. Does that make sense? I mean, I'll still do stuff. I still advocate, you know, being about oral cancer, but I'm now an empty nester, and I'm excited for new chapters in my life. So they can email me
Okay.
if you want to put on your notes. And I have some other things if you want to put on your notes. But it's Joana, Joana, I have one N, Breckner, B like boy, RECK, and like Nancy, ER, at me.com.
Okay. And then
Right.
you're also on LinkedIn. That was how we connected.
Oh, right.
And
I'm on LinkedIn.
there's some great speeches and stuff on LinkedIn that you've given in the past, which are awesome.
Yeah, I, I kind of pseudo have a called DYP, which is all about discovering your power. And I have a website for that. You'll put it on your notes. And I think my main message is like, if you're wearing your backpack of life, what are all your coping mechanisms that are in there? Is it a meditation? Is it a friend? Is it a support group? Is it going outside and putting your head in the sunshine and your feet on the ground? What is it that is going to elevate you on some level? It doesn't have to be fireworks. I mean, maybe it's just it will put a smile on your face, or will force you to take a shower, or maybe it's calling up a friend you haven't talked to in a while. I think social media is awesome, but sometimes I think we think it has to be these big gestures. And I think the small gestures are just as important because they're more manageable and doable. So, yeah, so I'm an email gal. Email me, I'll email you back.
All right. I love that. Well, that is the perfect way to end this with that last piece of advice. So thank you so much for joining me today. This is a great conversation, and everybody go see your dentist.
Yes.
Get that screening for oral cancer.
Mwah!
Have a great rest of your day.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. You're awesome. Feel good. I hope all your results come back positive.
Everything is
I'm
awesome.
sending you lots of love and lots of good energy.
Appreciate that. All right. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.